Hey, how's it going? Starting off a new reading vlog for this week. It'll be a few days. Today is Sunday, July 31st, and I am about to head into the city, New York City, because I am reading stage directions for a play. I have another job outside of my job in education, in which I work as a social media coordinator for a nonprofit performing arts organization, and my aunt was asked to direct this play, and the play kind of inspired my mood for my current read. The play is called Sisterhood in the Time of the Apocalypse. I believe it's still being workshopped and everything, which is why we're doing the table read. And it has this very doomsday, religious, evangelical vibe to it, and that made me want to pick up Weather. I spoke about Weather in 2 videos ago, I think, when I did my mid-year book tag, and I said that I wanted to read this because I just read Department of Speculation not too long ago and I really liked it. So I am on the 3rd part of Weather. It's broken down into 6 parts, I believe, or 6 chapters, but Jenny Ofel, I believe, is known for her fragmentary style, stylistic choice of writing, and Weather follows Lizzie, who is living in New York City. She never finished through with her PhD, and so now she works in the library, and she had the hookup from her former mentor in her PhD program, and eventually the mentor of her program runs a podcast, and she asks Lizzie to respond to the questions that the podcast receives, and the podcast is called Hell and High Water. It's really cool though. I'm really enjoying this because Lizzie's really grappling with aging. There are major themes of aging and what that means, the aging world, the aging body, how that manifests itself, and how it affects the psyche, our human psyche. There's also this theme of enmeshment, which I really, really like, and those words like mesh and enmeshment gets brought up again later on in the story when referencing the web and social media and how everyone is so interconnected, and how we feel as though we are missing out on life if we're not receiving a text in seconds and responding to the text. So it's very much a culmination of Lizzie's growing fear and anxiety surrounding her body and aging and death, and then also civilization and where it's headed, and then also impending climate crisis. I don't know, it's definitely satisfying. It's scratching that part of my brain that was craving for this very doomsday existential read. It reminds me of Don't Look Up, the movie that came out on Netflix recently with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I'm totally blanking on this woman's name, but Katniss Everdeen. I don't know why I'm blanking, but yeah, so it totally reminds me of that. That's that. Happy day. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you are not facing your own existential dreads right now, but it's interesting to read about Lizzie's. So that's that, and I will update you all in a little bit. It is now Tuesday. Sunday is when I was in the city doing the reading for the play, which I was telling you before got me in the mood to read Weather. I did not get any reading done Sunday because I got home at 11, I think. And then yesterday was Monday, went to work, and then pretty much sat and finished reading Weather by Jenny Ofel. While reading this, I wrote in the margins that reading this felt as if I were zooming in and out on my camera and waiting for the auto focus to adjust in order to capture a clear image. Since the writing is fragmentary, you feel like you are trying to wait for like this moment of like overall clarity or piecing together bits of the narrative. And Jenny Awful laces throughout like plot points or things that Lizzie, the main character, is going through like other societal events that are taking place. It grapples with the themes of impending climate crisis, technological advances, and seeing a world like closer to the end of your life that is inherently different than the world that you were born into. And then also raising children and all of that, and heavy woman versus the void vibes. I enjoyed this. I started reading Pure Color. Let me go grab that. So, like I was saying, probably one of my favorite first pages that I've read in a long time. And basically the premise of the story, I'll just read you the first sentence. It says, after God created the heavens and the earth, he stood back to contemplate creation, like a painter standing back from the canvas. This is the moment we are living in, the moment of God standing back. So I thought that premise was interesting. And basically what I'm gathering so far is this follows Mira. And there are these 3 different types of people that God has created in the world. And these 3 different groups of people represent and perceive the world in a certain way and have certain values. Imagine like a zodiac, like the astrological signs, but there's only 3 of them. So that's kind of what it's like. And so Mira is who we're following. She is currently like in school right now. It's basically, I know we're just gonna go on a trip. This is what this feels like. This book is very transcendental for sure, which is the vibe that I'm in. I was a bit existential and now I'm transcendental. Anyways, and then I also got some books on craft. I got Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, some instructions on life and writing. I also just read Sula by Toni Morrison. So I saw this book, Playing in the Dark, Whiteness and the Literary Imagination. And then also I got Bodywork by Melissa Febos. And it says this is a mix of memoir and masterclass. She tackles the emotional, psychological, and physical work of writing intimately while offering an utterly fresh examination of the storyteller's life and the questions that run through it. So these are all of my books that I got recently on writing. So Weather finished, going to read Pure Color and finish that and see what else happens this week. Okay, so it's a little later in the day. I thought about picking up Pure Color again, but I opted to read Devotions by Mary Oliver. So sorry, my battery died for my camera, so I had to go get a new battery real quick. But I was just talking about how my favorite Mary Oliver poem of all time is in here, Oxygen. I first came across Oxygen, I believe the New Yorker shared it on the anniversary of Mary Oliver's passing away a few years ago, and that poem sparked my downward spiral or upward spiral into reading Mary Oliver's poetry. So it is very near and dear to me, and there is a line about love in there that I think is just so beautiful. And now we're here. I think I'm like 5 poetry collections in deep, and then now selected works in deep, and then I've also read Upstream this year. You can call it an obsession at this point. I just feel so much joy and so much light when I read Mary Oliver's poetry, and I just really appreciate her simplistic style, and she still like manages to have these like very beautiful, profound thoughts and sentiments in her work that say a lot about the beauty of nature and the human condition, which I love and I eat up. I think I was saying before that I'm going to be reading a lot of poetry, or my goal is to read a lot of poetry in the month of August, and what better way than to start off with a thickie of a poetry book. This might be the biggest poetry collection I've ever read before. I think it has like 440 pages, almost 450 pages. Other poetry collections that I plan on reading this month, I want to read this poetry collection here. I'm just gonna insert it. It's also a very like thick poetry collection, but there's an image of Saturn on it, and just from that I know I will love it. I've been eyeing that poetry collection for years. Like, I have just been drawn to it. It is definitely the planet on the cover. You know me. Anything with planetary imagery, I eat it up. I have not read Pure Color at all yet, but I definitely want to spend a little bit of my time today reading that as well. Anyways, this is just a little reading update in my TLC shirt, and that's that, obsessing over Mary Oliver like usual. This, if you didn't know, is actually a Mary Oliver stan account, and I have just been lying to you and basically baiting you, and eventually every single video that I put out on this channel will be Mary Oliver focused. Hey friends, so started reading Pure Color. I'm on page 143. I am having a lot of complicated feelings about this novel, primarily because it was one of my most anticipated reads of the year. I mentioned it in like my first video of the year on my channel. It's literally in the thumbnail. I was so excited for this. Where do I even begin? So the first page was immediately drawn into this idea of God being in the first draft of creation, and the novel is set in the moment when he's taking a step back, when God is taking a step back and observing the creation to see how he can perfect it and make it better for a next draft. Immediately I'm like, okay, I'm tuning in. Maybe if you don't want to know too much about Pure Color, like skip this section, because I am going to talk in detail about it, because I feel like that's the only way to really explain what this book is going on. But before I do that, just to give you a synopsis. So the story follows Mina, and we're kind of just following her along as she processes grief. She is an art critic, and it's about like the end of the world, like sicknesses being rampant, pollution being rampant, and Mina just living through that. Also, like, there's a strong sense of wanting to be present in a moment that is also present throughout. So yeah, that's all I will say for the non-spoiler aspects. And then essentially we follow Mina as she goes into detail about the relationship that she has with her father. But the writing just gets very, very strange, honestly. And like, in my eyes, Weather did a better job than this book is doing. Like, it just feels too weird and too abstract for no real reason. And I'm finding it hard to really buy into what Sheila Heti is writing and saying about the world, and Mina's interpretation of the world and interpretation of her experiences. Like I said, I'm like halfway through. I'm honestly teetering on if I want to DNF it or not, just because there's so many other books that I'm excited about that I feel like I could be reading. But I also want, like, I did like the first 100 pages of this enough to want to see how it ends. It's also been a few days since I updated the vlog, but school's officially over, so I have a lot of free time, which means a lot of time to read. I also might watch The Lost Daughter today, because I've been putting that off, but I'm in the mood to watch it, so I probably will. So I'm literally watching The Lost Daughter right now, and was no one gonna tell me that this movie has a special someone? And that special someone being Connell? Like, did people just fail to mention that to me? I feel like the literary paths are really displaying their interconnectedness, with him being cast in The Lost Daughter as well, like as the pool boy, as the pool attendant. I really feel like this is a true moment of inception. I just wanted to come in and say that. Hey, it's been a few days, and I've actually been writing more recently, which is really exciting. I went through a period of not writing for literally like almost a year, or not writing anything that I felt intuitively connected to. And for me, the creative process relies heavily on my intuition, or how I feel like emotionally connected to a piece. Like I could just write to write, but I actually want to feel what I'm writing. So I've been finally able to connect, and as I have said, and I do share some of my writing on my Instagram, so if you're interested, make sure you follow me on there. It's linked in the description. So all that being said, I did finish Pure Color since the last time I vlogged, and unfortunately Pure Color was not it for me. The novel is arguing that it is a part of the human experience to be able to create our own art, and that's what connects us to God, which is all things that I believe in and like share the same sentiments around. But I just think the execution of this was just totally just not for me. It was too experimental, and there were too many gaps, in my opinion, in terms of how the story was unfolding. It felt very unnatural to me how the story unfolded, and the story just jumped around too much for me. And the thing is, I get what's happening. Like, I understand why Mara and her father went into a leaf. In my opinion, it's supposed to symbolize like the tree of life. Like, there are a lot of religious or spiritual imagery and references in this novel, and I get why it happened, but just the writing when that was happening also felt like I was reading something that needed to be looked over again. The thoughts were repeated so many times, I was over it. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, you're an art critic, God's in the first draft of creation, this draft of creation totally sucks, and like he got it all wrong, but there were some things that he got right. And it's a story about grief. Her life is changing, she's losing people that she cares about, and particularly she loses her dad, and she kind of spirals from there. Like, that's what I got from this. There are a few different ways that you can look at this book or take it. You can either take it as Myra trying to desperately make sense of why we need to lose the people that we care about the most. And you can also look at it as something that is very philosophical. This book taught me one thing, and it taught me that my taste in books, specifically when it comes to like these heavy universal themes of grief, of creation, of spirituality, I like it to be something that is simple in a sense that it takes these small moments and analyzes them and relates them to those bigger themes of life, those universal experiences that we all go through. This one felt like a bit outrageous. Also, the language that was used, like, I don't know. Did anyone else feel this way about Pure Color? I ended up rating it 2 stars, which is honestly my lowest rating of a book this entire year, and I feel very sad about it because this was literally one of my most anticipated reads this year. I was very excited for it. Like, I was just kind of like, why is this happening? Like, why is she dressed as a leaf right now? Like, she lives in a leaf and then she decides to dress as a leaf, and no one's concerned. Like, that's what I'm saying. To me, it could be her spiraling after her father's death, which made me like realize, like, did she really even inhabit a leaf? Like, I don't know. Now I'm kind of spiraling because is she a reliable narrator? I don't know. Yeah, I hope I'm making sense, but I have heard that Motherhood is really good from her and different than this. I just don't think I would read something like this from her again. I'm so sorry. Like, I really hate giving bad book reviews or negative book reviews, but I have to be honest when something just completely missed the mark for me. I'm wearing my glasses because I have been experiencing like eye strain and eye pain and not really realizing why, and then I was like, maybe I should put on my glasses. It's so nice because I realized like how I wasn't seeing the world in 4K, and then I put my glasses on. I'm like, wow, the world is so much clearer. That concludes the reading vlog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
And I was like, yo.